Hello, my name is Biery, and this is The Power of One. We live in a time when our idea of community is frayed, strained due to busy lives, challenged by the political landscape and competing responsibilities. Some of us believe that getting involved will not change anything, that being civically involved will just lead to defeat and frustration. But what does it mean to feel empowered enough to take action on an issue of concern, to get involved in a cause that is bigger than ourselves? Fortunately, however, there are many people in our community who are doing something about the conditions in which we live. They are creative and dynamic individuals who are fighting for what is right and for better lives for everyone. This program will show you that one person can make a difference, that the power of one is within all of us. Welcome to the Power of One. Thank you for being here. And our guest today is Ellen Snortland.
Indeed.
Writer, author, artist, producer. I mean, the list is pretty long, even baker. So how can you combine all that into one being?
Well, when I was a little girl, I was a daddy's girl, and I climbed on my dad's lap, and I said, "What are you reading, Daddy?" And he says, "I'm reading Winston Churchill." And I said, "Oh, tell me about him." And so he says, "Well, he's a complicated person, and he's he's a humanist, he's a politician, he's just a all well-rounded person. You could call him a Renaissance man." And I said, "Well, Daddy, can a girl be a Renaissance girl?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Okay, that's what I'm going to do."
You said that, so how old were you then?
Probably 10.
That's pretty amazing that you were already that self-enlightened, that you knew at that time that you wanted to be a part of, feminism.
Well, I have one foot firmly planted in traditional homemaking, which I am very happy with. I love that I know how to set a beautiful table, and I can cook, and I can sew and bake Norwegian goodies. Mm-hmm. But I also had the other foot firmly planted in seeing as far as I could go as a pioneer in really areas that I had never seen women participate in. I had really very few people to look to, a lot of discouragement and a lot of failures, and yet I knew that in my heart I wanted to strike out and do the best I could to be the first of many things in my family as a woman.
Yeah, there's a jazz musician named Keith Jarrett, and he says the art of genius is letting go. And it sounds like in your life you've done a lot of that, because instead of paying attention to those barriers or to those, shall we say, stereotypes or limitations, you decided to take another path.
Yeah,
How is that? Talk a little bit about that experience, though.
Okay, let me tell you what happened that I think made a huge difference in my life. Oh, I know it made a big difference in my life. When I was 17, I took a spontaneous trip back to South Dakota where my parents were. I had come out to California on my own. And as I was there, a killer flood hit. Our house was in a floodplain, and I knew in my bones, like the dogs did, they were barking, going crazy, hours before anything dangerous happened, that something bad was going to happen. So I was saying to Mom and Dad, "Come on, you know what? We need to go to friends' houses. We need to go to higher ground. We're in danger." And they wouldn't listen to me. Partially why they wouldn't listen to me is that neither one of them were swimmers, and they did not know the power and majesty of water.
And moving water at that.
And moving water. And so sure enough, at about 10:30 that night, the water rose very quickly, and long story short, I saved my parents from drowning.
Well, but wait.
19 years old.
But I thought you said, you had to swim to. How did you save them? Because they wouldn't leave.
They wouldn't leave until it was too late to leave. So then they wanted to go out, and I said, "Okay, we might be able to make it to our garage." I said I was 19. I was probably 17. And so we got out into the stream. It was like you could feel it rising. People were floating by in cars, screaming. It was a nightmare. It was like being in wartime. And they wouldn't listen to me when it was safe. So we got out there, and our footing started to slip, and they started to panic. and were, it's classic, right? And I was able to grab them and pull them back to the house.
Yeah. Well, that's a great, I think, metaphor too for someone as a woman who's not necessarily seen as an authority, and yet is saying, we need to do this, we need to do this,
Right.
and not being listened to.
Really interesting, because the reason I tell that anecdote is not that, but that's another angle that I'm going to start talking about, because I bet if I'd been a son, they would have listened to me a lot faster. But what I got out of that was, we spent the night in the attic, and I'm like going, there's no rehearsal for life.
Yeah.
I saw neighbors floating to their deaths. And so as a young woman, to have that experience up close and personal, as the phrase goes, I changed my life that night. I went, you know what, I can't act like this is going to go on forever.
Right.
And so that gave me courage to not stop at barriers, because, I lived through something that killed 273 people.
Yeah.
And out of 27 people in my neighborhood, 7 people survived, 3 of whom were me and my parents.
So it also
transformed my life.
Yeah, it transformed. So then, would you say you're a risk taker, or that you are open to, or that your life, the way you've lived your life, is specifically following your passion or following your heart?
Absolutely, absolutely. I do not want to ever regret what I didn't do.
Right.
That's what a lot of wise people say. It's like, you don't, on your deathbed, you don't go, oh, I wish I hadn't done blah blah blah, unless it's something that you dreamed about, or so. I'm kind of strangling that quote, but you don't regret that which you did. You regret what you didn't do.
Right.
That's
So
what
talk a little bit about some of the activities you've been involved with. Like, I think you've written for the Pasadena Weekly, and you've been in a play, and we have a couple of fantastic books here that you have written.
Yeah.
So can you describe a little bit?
Sure. A lot of the different activities I've done, I, believe it or not, was incredibly shy in high school and
I
did
don't
not.
believe it.
I know you didn't, but people are multifaceted. But
That's
I
true.
knew what I needed to do was to get over that with what I wanted to do in life. So I forced myself to be in theater. And I found a stride in theater that I had never known before, and I threw myself in wholeheartedly to that, and also forced myself into the debate team so I could do extemporaneous speaking and debate. So I did everything that scared me because I knew I would grow from it.
Right.
So in that way, yes, I've always been a risk taker, because if something scares me, I don't back away. I go, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why am I so scared?
Yeah, there's potential here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Growth potential at all times. And so when I tell people, if you're scared, let's hold hands and let's go toward it together and see what it is,
Yeah. So what are some of the other activities that you've participated in over the years, artistically?
Well, I did, artistically, I was going to say, I did.
Well, professionally.
Yeah, I did the Landmark Forum, which a lot of people have done, a lot of artists, a lot of educators, a lot of parents, and that, more than anything that I can think of that's kind of structured, has encouraged my being brave. Because their mission really is to have people do what's important to them personally. And a lot of people give up on dreams, and it hurts their heart. It really does bruise your heart to give up on yourself. And so my heart needs rehabilitation every week because I fail so much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have a strong heart, and I love theater because there's nothing like the adrenaline rush of being on stage and knowing that something could go off at any moment. I love live television. I've had a great career in television because it was like one take stuff, and it requires real adrenaline management to do that.
Yeah, and thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Well, but going to one of your passions, which I think is women's empowerment.
Absolutely.
Just as an example, so I'll talk about my grandmother. She, here in Pasadena, married my grandfather. He worked at Goodyear Tire Company. She had a degree, and this is going way back, 30s, 40s. She had a degree in mathematics from Pomona College.
Right.
And he didn't have a college degree. And so in her scenario, she didn't end up having a career, and he was the breadwinner. And not to say this is good or this is bad, but in your experience over time, how has that trajectory taken place, or how do you see women's empowerment growing, developing, and have we gotten to a point where there's more equity?
I don't know. I'm afraid we're taking some steps backward. One of the things that breaks my heart is that I see so much talent wasted because women are, in a way, wholesale afraid of men, and don't need to be. Maybe there's 5% of the male population that are vicious, dangerous, etc. The rest of them are like, I don't know, it's a mystery to me, I'm just a guy. Do you know what I mean? They're completely full, warm, lovely human beings. But you can't tell from looking at somebody whether you're one of those guys or not. And so a lot of women spend a lot of time being cautious with men that scare them just because they're male. And I think that's a waste of human resources. And getting back to your point, I did a series of rough cuts for my movie Beauty Bites Beast at different stages, because as a theater person, I have to see something in front of an audience until I can really figure out where I am.
So you perform part of the movie in front of a live audience?
I ran it, because we had edited it to a certain point, and we knew there were things missing. So
to
if
get
there were,
feedback?
Yes, to get feedback, which you get instantaneously into theater, but not so much in film, right?
Yeah.
But I can't do things in production in a vacuum. So I let them know it was a rough cut. This young woman came up to me. I think she's Hispanic. Yeah, she's Hispanic. She is a classic physics geek. She says, I'm 17 years old, and boys in my class are already telling me that I do not belong in astrophysics and get out.
Right.
And I'm saying, oh, you got to get into one of these classes, because so what that he said that to you? But the underlying fear for a lot of girls is that they'll get hurt if they say, I don't care what you think, or that it'll come back, there will be a backlash, they won't know how to handle it, and so they just go away.
Right, they don't have tools.
They don't have tools.
Yeah.
And this guy, who knows? I doubt he was a sociopath, but he didn't like girls for whatever reason, or felt threatened by her being better than him. Who knows what the politics were? But she had no tools. She didn't expect that kind of hostility in 2016. And she had never practiced what to say to somebody. And it had happened to her enough times that she was thinking about quitting STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think the world is a worse place because we don't have those minds solving the problems that we have got to face as a human family. Boys, girls, men, women, everybody on board. However you identify yourself, all hands on deck.
So let's talk a little bit about the film. A couple of parts. One is those tools, but we'll go deeper into those tools in a minute. But the first part is, if I remember correctly, isn't there a JPL scientist in the movie?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so imagine if her growth and development had been impeded in a similar way. She wouldn't be up there, and isn't she working on the Mars rover?
Yeah. That's Nagi Cox, and she is one of my dearest friends, and she is also a proponent of empowering women through physical self-defense, which, people go, oh, well, I don't need that, I'm very verbal and everything else, except they don't factor in the adrenaline factor, which is when somebody scares you enough, your intellectual, your verbal skills go, and your flight or fight juices kick in, and you can't say anything. And a lot of people have that experience. I should have said this, I should have said that, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not going to happen on adrenaline and cortisol unless you've practiced.
Yeah. So why don't we're going to take a look at the trailer, Can you set it up? Just describe in general terms what folks are about to see.
Sure. You know, the challenge of a trailer is to give people a flavor and a sense of the tone of the movie as well as the content.
Yeah.
And I feel like we did an incredibly good job on this. Upworthy ran us, and we had 1,300,000 hits.
1 million?
Yeah.
I can't count that high.
Me neither. I'm glad I don't have to. Anyway, so we really look to have it capture and inspire people to see the movie.
Right.
And in fact, it has done that. So.
Well, and I think just to hone in on that a little bit, I think what the movie does is it provides people with knowledge and information, of course, but it also, I think, lessens a little bit of anxiety or fear in women that they do actually have a choice, or they do have options to be able to empower themselves.
Yeah.
And then the other part that I like about it is the motivational aspect, or the inspirational. And you see women from all over the world taking part in these training sessions. So it's really, I think it's inspiring for a lot of folks.
Thank you. I made it global because it's a global epidemic. The violence against women is globally a pandemic.
Yeah. So can we play the trailer right now?
Watch this. He balls his fist. He raises his fist. He prods her. We don't know what he says, and bam! She's had enough. The World Health Organization says 1 in 3 women are assaulted in their lifetimes. Think globally, act locally. There's nothing more local than your body. Oh, that's a female. I'm not afraid, said no one, ever. Animals learn how to hunt or defend themselves through fun and games. The mama never segregates her babies into male and female groups. They all play and learn the power of their own bodies, regardless of gender.
Once women know that they can defend themselves in a physical way, then they can defend themselves emotionally, economically, politically. I mean, there's just no end to it.
My overarching recommendation for women is to recognize that it is not a requirement that you be nice.
It's better to have all the preparation you need.
We're showing
and
a,
nothing happen,
we're showing a clip.
than it is to just hope everything's going to be okay.
Okay, hit, fine. I can figure out how to hit. But to say, go away, back off, that was a really tough thing for me. A kid running out to the street and you yell, stop!
We just dropped it in.
Yeah. You've saved them.
Yeah, so we're going to come back on
access
live
that voice for yourself.
in about 40 seconds. I think one of the striking parts of the video overall, but actually that trailer, is this whole, the statistical evidence behind, you call it a pandemic, behind the huge amount or number of women who have been sexually violated or assaulted. With that in mind, I mean, it's pretty obvious why this is a problem, but why personally are you so passionate about this subject?
Well, when I was a law student at Loyola, I bought my first house, which was very close to Loyola Law School, which is 3 blocks east of MacArthur Park. And it's a really, really rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And my husband at the time, my second husband, and I came home at midnight, and he, in 2 separate cars, and he knocked on my driver's side, and he says, "Stay in the car, somebody's broken in." And I went, okay, and so I sat there for a while, and I said, wait a second, what kind of feminist am I to let my husband go in and handle danger? That's not right. So I decided to follow him in. So he was in another part of the house, and as I started to cross the threshold, a man in a ski mask came up the stairs and met me and held up a knife and was ready to plunge it into me. And I froze, and then I said, do something now, do it now, do it now. A little voice said to me inside my head. And so I screamed so loudly, the man dropped the knife, grabbed his ears, and ran like hell.
Yeah.
And then I was a segment producer at that time at King World. And the next day, and my husband was fine in the other part of the house, except he was traumatized by my scream. He didn't know if he was going to find me dead or alive.
Yeah.
I was very alive, shaking. And I told the cops, if you find somebody in an ER with bleeding ears, that's your guy. Because I have...
Yeah, track him down.
Oh, man, I have a scream you would not believe. Anyway, so the next day I went to work and I just said, do you know how to defend yourself? Do you know how to defend yourself? There were about 40 people on staff, and I asked every single person, every single...
Male and female?
Yep, I'll get there. Every single man said, yeah. Every single woman said, no. I'm amazed you could even scream. And I went, there is a huge gender gap here. Why is that? So I started to research why.
Yeah. Well, that's a question you raise in the film, is why don't we teach self-defense to girls and women in our society?
Yeah, and statistically, it's crazy. It's like, so I have been tussling with this for a long time, and it's not, I don't think it's biological at all. I think it's completely cultural. I think it's the biggest spin that has ever been played out on a ginormous group of people. It doesn't make any sense. It depends on the person. If I say, okay, to a woman, what would you do if you were around and a friend of yours were being attacked? She'd be, well, I'd help, I'd intervene, I'd call somebody, I'd do something. And then I say, well, what if somebody attacked your child? Whoa, watch that ferocity just bubble up. And then I say, well, what would you do if somebody attacked you? And they go, I don't know. So why don't women include themselves in that sphere of care? Part of it is it's socially acceptable to protect offspring or your home.
Oh, well, it's absolutely a priority societally.
Yes.
Especially children.
Yes, but not for the woman.
No.
Which, just brainwashing propaganda-wise, most women I've talked to who are survivors blame themselves. They go, well, you know, I shouldn't have done this. And, yep. Isn't that handy? And I'm just saying, no, wait a second. You are potentially a dangerous mammal, and I'm going to give you the tools to take that back.
So let's talk about that for a minute, because we don't have a whole lot of time left.
I want to keep talking.
I know. So how does it work? What is the process, and how is it being implemented?
Well, I happen to be on the board and an instructor for a 501c3 called Impact Personal Safety. And we teach in a particular way where we use a male-female co-instructor team so that people can see two things. One, that women can be authorities about something in such a
and have control.
Yeah.
Well, to a certain extent.
Well, that can be an authority.
Yeah, okay.
On something that is considered to be a male-dominated field, right?
Right.
And they can see men be partners with a woman, holding up her authority, and also a guy that is committed to ending violence against women. That is a very powerful team right there that speaks volumes without even saying anything about it. People see a man and a woman working in partnership where he yields to her, doesn't interrupt her, lets her be an authority.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And then we work on verbal, because women have been afraid to say something because they think if they say something, it's going to backfire.
Yeah.
That if she says something that offends him, he'll hit her. So a lot of women are struck dumb. It's a politically incorrect phrase, I just realized, but are struck,
well,
mute.
speechless.
Speechless. And they have not practiced saying, you know what, you're too close, would you back up?
Right.
They're called a bitch if they are assertive, so they've been called a bitch so many times that they don't do that. You know, so they have negative consequences for setting boundaries.
Because we can't run a class right now,
Yeah.
even though it would be interesting. And by the way, one of the most powerful moments in the film is when you see men who are the trainers talking about why it's important to them to be a trainer. It's a fantastic scene. What, in the short time that we have, in a sentence or two, what would you tell women right now to help prevent themselves from being victimized?
Understand that men are completely human, just like we are. And if you're in a dangerous situation, to understand that a man's eyes are the same size as yours, and predators need to be able to see. And if you're in danger and you can use something, even like a zipper on the edge of your hoodie, or grab a sand or gravel and put it in their eyes, that can give you the time that you need to just get away.
Yeah.
And what we teach...
A distraction.
Yeah, well, have you ever gotten sand in your eyes?
Bad.
Yeah, it's bad. Well, imagine something coming at your face. And we've got a flinch response that Mother Nature gave us, and there's not a predator on the planet that won't protect its face.
Right. So how can people see the film?
Well, that's a good question right now. We just have a distributor, and we don't have anything in place yet, but he's out there selling it and like that. So I will let you know. If you have a website, I'll let people know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we have a Beauty Bites Beast Facebook page, so
okay.
if you could sign up for that.
Well, and that's a way, actually, that then maybe they could find out about when it's going to be shown.
Right.
So Beauty Bites Beast Facebook page.
Beauty Bites Beast doc. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate the work that you're doing. And again, going back to Power of One, you're an example of that. Creating change because you believe in your vision, because you follow it, and because you inspire other people to follow it as well. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I really